Listen closely. This isn't about playing games. This isn't about manipulation. This is about power. Quiet power. The kind of power that doesn't beg, chase, or explain itself. When a woman learns to detach, she steps into a frequency that changes the way the world responds to her. Not because she's cold, but because she's centered. Not because she stopped caring, but because she started caring about herself first. Detachment isn't weakness. Detachment is discipline. And discipline creates respect. Today, we're breaking down why men can resist women who detach, and how this mindset turns pain into purpose, attention into respect, and silence into strength. Detachment signals self-worth because it is the quiet language of confidence. When a woman detaches, she is not making a dramatic exit or trying to prove a point. She is simply choosing not to invest emotional energy where it is not being valued. This choice speaks louder than words because it shows she understands her worth without needing external confirmation. She doesn't need to announce her standards or demand better treatment. Her actions already set the boundary. Detachment is the difference between someone who hopes to be chosen and someone who knows she is already enough. At its core, detachment is self-respect in motion. A woman who truly values herself does not overextend, overexplain, or overgive in an attempt to be loved. She understands that real connection cannot be forced, and that chasing attention only teaches others that her time and energy are negotiable. When she pulls back, she is not punishing anyone. She is simply refusing to abandon herself. That refusal creates a powerful shift. People begin to feel the absence of her emotional availability, and that absence forces them to recognize what they took for granted. Men in particular sense this shift immediately because it disrupts familiar dynamics. When a woman stops seeking validation, she becomes unpredictable in the best way. Her mood no longer depends on whether she receives a text back. Her self-esteem is no longer tied to someone else's effort. This independence creates a natural authority. Confidence that doesn't ask for permission is rare, and rarity creates value. When she no longer tries to convince someone of her worth, that worth becomes undeniable. Detachment also communicates emotional maturity. It shows that she understands the difference between desire and dependency. She can care deeply without clinging. She can love without losing herself. This balance is attractive because it signals stability. A woman who detaches is not desperate to be chosen, and desperation repels. Calm self-assurance, on the other hand, draws people in. It makes others step up, not because they are pressured, but because they feel they must rise to her level. Another reason detachment signals self-worth is that it removes the need for approval. Approval-seeking behavior often comes from fear of abandonment, fear of not being enough, fear of being alone. Detachment dissolves that fear. It says, I am okay with or without this. That mindset is powerful because it shifts the balance of energy. The woman is no longer reacting, she is choosing. And when someone chooses rather than reacts, they hold the power. This doesn't mean detachment is cold or unkind. In fact, it often comes from clarity and self-awareness. A detached woman still feels emotions, but she doesn't let them override her standards. She doesn't ignore red flags to preserve connection. She understands that losing someone who cannot meet her where she stands is not a loss at all. This clarity creates peace, and peace is magnetic. People are drawn to those who are grounded in themselves because they feel safe, secure, and solid. When a woman detaches, she also reclaims her focus. Instead of monitoring someone else's behavior, she invests in her own growth. Her energy goes into her goals, her healing, her confidence. This self-investment changes how she shows up in the world. She walks differently, she speaks differently, she carries herself with quiet assurance. And that assurance communicates value more effectively than any words ever could. A simple example makes this clear. Imagine a woman who is dating someone inconsistent with his communication. In the past, she might have double texted, overthought every delay, or tried to spark interest by giving more. This time, she notices the pattern and calmly pulls back. She doesn't accuse or chase. She fills her time with her own life, her own priorities. Days later, the man reaches out, suddenly attentive, asking why she feels distant. Nothing changed except her energy. By detaching, she showed that her attention is not guaranteed. Her self-worth set the tone, and the dynamic shifted naturally. In the end, detachment signals self-worth because it proves that a woman knows her value even in silence. She doesn't need to be chosen to feel complete. She chooses herself first, and that choice changes everything. Detachment removes emotional control because it breaks the invisible leash that inconsistency, disrespect, and mixed signals rely on. Emotional control exists when someone can influence your mood, your confidence, or your decisions, simply by changing their behavior. When a woman reacts emotionally every time attention is given or taken away, she unknowingly hands over power. Her feelings become a remote control that someone else can press whenever they choose. Detachment is the act of taking that remote back the moment a woman stops reacting emotionally. The entire dynamic shifts. Silence no longer feels like punishment. Delayed responses no longer trigger anxiety. Inconsistency no longer sparks overthinking. Instead of responding from emotion, she responds from awareness. She observes patterns rather than excusing them. She recognizes behavior for what it is instead of what she hopes it will become. This is where control is reclaimed, because manipulation only works on people who are emotionally hooked. Unhealthy dynamics thrive on emotional reactions. Hot and cold behavior, mixed signals, sudden withdrawal followed by attention. All of it is designed, consciously or unconsciously, to create confusion. Confusion keeps someone attached. When a woman detaches, confusion loses its power. She no longer rushes to fix what isn't broken on her end. She no longer explains her feelings to someone committed to misunderstanding them. She simply adjusts her presence based on what she sees, not what she's promised. Detachment also ends power struggles. Power struggles happen when one person tries to control the outcome by controlling the other person's emotions. Arguments, silent treatments, emotional withdrawal, these tactics only work if the other person reacts. A detached woman doesn't fight for position. She doesn't compete for effort. She doesn't beg for consistency. She removes herself emotionally from the battlefield altogether. And when there's no opponent, the struggle ends. When emotions no longer control her actions, clarity takes over. Clarity allows her to see disrespect without rationalizing it. It allows her to feel disappointment without self-blame. It allows her to walk away without guilt. This clarity is deeply unsettling to anyone who benefited from her emotional reactions. People who thrived on confusion feel exposed when faced with someone who is calm, observant, and no longer emotive, only accessible in the same way. Men don't resist this energy because there is nothing to fight against. They respect it because it cannot be controlled. A woman who detaches becomes unpredictable to those who relied on predictability. Her reactions are no longer guaranteed. Her availability is no longer assumed. Her emotional labor is no longer free. This forces a choice: rise to meet her standards or lose access to her energy. Detachment does not mean shutting down feelings. It means refusing to let feelings dictate behavior that goes against self-respect. A detached woman still feels hurt, but she doesn't chase reassurance. She still cares, but she doesn't tolerate inconsistency. She still loves, but she doesn't abandon herself to keep someone else comfortable. That balance is power. Emotional intelligence always outperforms emotional impulse. Another important shift that detachment creates is internal peace. When a woman stops reacting emotionally, her nervous system calms. She is no longer on edge waiting for the next message or mood change. That peace sharpens her intuition. She becomes more decisive. She trusts herself more. And self-trust is a foundation of real control. When someone trusts themselves, they cannot be easily manipulated. Detachment also sends a nonverbal message. You do not get to access me at the same level if you don't show up with consistency and respect. This message doesn't need to be spoken, it's felt. Energy always speaks first. People adjust their behavior not because they were told to, but because they sense a boundary that cannot be crossed without consequence. A simple example makes this clear. Imagine a woman dealing with someone who disappears for days and then returns with charm and attention. In the past, she might have confronted him emotionally or accepted the behavior out of fear of losing him. This time, she noted, is the pattern and emotionally detaches. When he disappears, she continues living her life without reacting. When he returns, she is polite but no longer emotionally invested or overly available. Confused, he asks why she's changed. Nothing changed except her emotional response. By detaching, she removed his ability to control the dynamic. In the end, detachment removes emotional control because it places power back where it belongs, within the woman herself. She becomes a source of her own stability, not someone else's behavior. And when a woman reaches that point, she is no longer controlled, chased, or played. She is respected. Detachment creates mystery because it reintroduces space. And space is where curiosity lives. When everything about a woman is immediately available, her thoughts, her emotions, her time, her plans, there is nothing left to discover. Over-explaining, oversharing, and being constantly accessible may feel like honesty or openness, but it often removes intrigue. Mystery isn't about hiding or pretending. It's about allowing connection to unfold naturally instead of forcing intimacy before it's earned. When a woman detaches, she stops narrating her inner world to anyone who shows minimal interest. She doesn't rush to explain her feelings, justify her boundaries, or clarify her value. She understands that real connection deepens through experience, not explanation. By holding back unnecessary details, she allows people to learn her gradually. Each interaction becomes an invitation, not a download. This slow reveal makes her presence feel intentional rather than automatic. Constant availability kills curiosity because it removes anticipation. If someone knows you'll always answer, always show up, always explain yourself, there's no reason to wonder, pursue, or reflect. Detachment interrupts this pattern. It introduces pauses. Those pauses make people think. Silence creates questions, and questions create interest. The human mind is naturally drawn to what it doesn't fully understand or possess yet. Mystery also signals confidence. A woman who doesn't feel the need to explain herself excessively is saying without words, I trust myself. She doesn't need to convince anyone of her intentions or worth. She lets her consistency, energy, and presence speak for her. That self-trust is attractive because it suggests depth. People assume there is more beneath the surface, and they're right. Detachment keeps emotional access earned, not assumed. When a woman reveals everything too quickly, she gives emotional intimacy to people who haven't demonstrated care, consistency, or respect. Detachment slows this down. It doesn't shut people out, but it requires them to show up before being let in. This earned access creates value. What costs effort is always treated with more care than what is freely given. Men especially respond strongly to this dynamic because attraction thrives on balance. Too much mystery creates confusion, but too much clarity removes desire. Detachment balances both. A detached woman is clear about her standards and calm in her presence, but she doesn't over-explain her emotions or future intentions. She lets actions define the connection. This balance keeps interest alive without creating insecurity. Another reason detachment creates mystery is that it shifts focus inward. A woman who is detached is not constantly monitoring how she's perceived. She's not performing for approval. She's engaged in her own life, goals, and interests. That self-contained energy is intriguing because it suggests fullness. People are drawn to those who seem complete on their own, not those waiting to be completed by someone else. Mystery also protects emotional energy. Oversharing often comes from a desire to be understood quickly, but true understanding takes time. Detachment allows a woman to stay grounded while others earn deeper access. This protects her from disappointment and burnout while maintaining attraction. She becomes someone people want to know more about, not someone they feel they've already figured out. Importantly, mystery doesn't mean being distant or cold. A detached woman can still be warm, kind, and engaging. The difference is she doesn't overextend. She shares appropriately. She listens more than she explains. She lets moments breathe instead of filling every silence. That calm restraint makes interactions feel richer and more meaningful.
A short example makes this clear. Imagine a woman meeting someone new.
In the past, she might have shared her past relationships, fears, future plans, and emotional wounds within the first few conversations. This time, she detaches. She's present and engaged, but she keeps certain parts of herself private. When asked deeply personal questions too soon, she answers lightly or redirects without apology. Weeks later, as trust builds, she opens up naturally. The man feels increasingly drawn in, not because she withheld artificially, but because he discovered her layer by layer. Her detachment didn't push him away, it pulled him closer. In the end, detachment creates mystery because it honors timing, depth, and self-respect. What isn't rushed is valued. What isn't fully accessible is appreciated. And a woman who understands this doesn't need to chase interest, Her presence creates it. Detachment forces growth or exit because it removes comfort without creating conflict. When a woman detaches, she stops compensating for someone else's lack of effort. She no longer fills the gaps with patience, excuses, emotional labor, or hope. This shift acts like a mirror. It reflects behavior exactly as it is without distortion. And when someone is faced with their own reflection, they have only two choices: rise to meet it or walk away from it. Many unhealthy dynamics survive not because both people are aligned, but because one person is overfunctioning. When a woman stays emotionally available despite inconsistency, she unknowingly cushions the consequences of someone else's behavior. Missed calls don't matter because she understands. Mixed signals don't matter because she gives the benefit of the doubt. Lack of effort doesn't matter because she tries harder. Detachment removes that cushioning. Suddenly actions have weight. Silence has meaning. Effort, or the lack of it, becomes visible. When that safety net disappears, intentions surface. Someone who truly values the connection feels the shift immediately. They notice the emotional distance, the reduced availability, the calm pullback. Instead of feeling attacked, they feel challenged, not by words, but by absence. That challenge activates growth. They either step up their effort, communicate more clearly, or show consistency they previously avoided. Detachment becomes the catalyst that reveals what they were always capable of, but never required to show. On the other hand, someone who is benefiting from the woman's emotional overinvestment reacts differently. They feel uncomfortable, irritated, or confused, not because the woman changed, but because the dynamic did. They may accuse her of being distant, cold, or different. In reality, she simply stopped doing extra work to maintain something one-sided. This discomfort often leads to exit. And that exit is not a loss, it is clarity. Detachment doesn't beg someone to change, because begging reinforces imbalance. It keeps the focus on convincing rather than choosing. A detached woman doesn't explain why she deserves more. She doesn't threaten to leave or demand better behavior. She's simply agile. Sees her presence to match what is being offered. That adjustment is powerful because it puts responsibility back where it belongs. Growth is no longer optional, it's required for access. This process also protects the woman's self-respect. Instead of waiting endlessly for potential to turn into action, she allows reality to speak. If someone grows, the connection evolves naturally. If they leave, the truth is revealed early, not years later. Detachment saves time, energy, and emotional damage by accelerating honesty. What makes this so effective is that it's quiet. There's no drama, no confrontation, no ultimatums, just a calm withdrawal of emotional excess. This calmness is what makes the mirror unavoidable. Without emotional reactions to distract from behavior, people are forced to sit with themselves. Some rise, some run. Both outcomes are answers. Detachment also reframes power. The woman is no longer waiting to be chosen or improved upon. She is choosing alignment. Her peace becomes the standard. Anyone who wants to stay must meet it. That standard naturally filters people. Those capable of growth feel inspired. Those unwilling to change feel exposed. Importantly, growth doesn't always mean perfection. It means effort, accountability, and presence. Detachment invites these qualities without demanding them. And when they don't appear, the exit happens naturally without bitterness. The woman doesn't chase explanations. She doesn't negotiate her boundaries. She accepts the answer she's been given through action. A short example makes this clear. Imagine a woman dating someone who avoids commitment but enjoys emotional closeness. For months, she supports him, waits patiently, and hopes consistency will come. Eventually, she detaches. She stops initiating conversations, stops making herself endlessly available, and refocuses on her own life. Not cold, just calm. Within weeks, the man feels the shift. He either starts showing up consistently, communicating clearly, and discussing commitment, or he fades away entirely. In both cases, the truth emerges. Her detachment didn't end the connection, it revealed whether it was real. In the end, detachment forces growth or exit because it removes illusion. It replaces hope with clarity and effort with evidence. A woman who detaches doesn't lose people who were meant for her. She loses people who needed her to stay small, silent, and accommodating. And that is not loss. That is alignment. Detachment shifts the focus back to purpose because it reclaims energy that was previously leaking into worry, chasing, and emotional overinvestment. When a woman is deeply attached to outcomes, people, or validation, much of her mental space is occupied by questions like, why hasn't he called? What did I do wrong? Or how do I keep this connection alive? Detachment cuts off that noise. Not because she stops caring, but because she stops allowing uncertainty to dominate her inner world. The energy that once went outward returns inward, and that inward return is where purpose begins to grow. When a woman detaches, she stops organizing her life around someone else's attention. Her schedule no longer revolves around availability for others. Her emotions no longer rise and fall based on external behavior. This creates room for intention. She starts asking different questions. What do I want to build? Who am I becoming? What deserves my focus right now? Purpose thrives in this space because it requires clarity, consistency, and self-direction. Things attachment often disrupts. As her focus shifts, her goals naturally become louder than her fears. Fear is loudest when the mind is idle and waiting. Detachment fills that waiting with action. She invests in her skills, her health, her creativity, her discipline. Each small act of self-investment compounds into confidence. This confidence is not performative. It is earned. And earned confidence changes presence. She moves differently because she knows her days are full whether someone chooses her or not. Vision also strengthens with detachment. When emotional attachment dominates, vision narrows. Everything becomes about preserving connection, even at the cost of growth. Detachment widens perspective. It allows a woman to see beyond the moment into the future she wants to create. She stops shrinking her dreams to fit someone else's comfort level. Instead, she aligns her daily actions with the life she envisions. That alignment creates momentum, and momentum is attractive because it signals direction. This is why people don't just notice a purpose-driven woman. They feel her. Purpose has a frequency. It shows up in how she speaks, how she listens, how she carries silence. She doesn't rush. She doesn't chase. She has somewhere to be internally, even if she's standing still. That grounded energy creates gravity. Others are drawn to it not because she demands attention, but because her life is already full. Men especially respond to this alignment because it removes pressure and replaces it with admiration. A woman with purpose is not asking someone to complete her. She is inviting them to walk alongside her. That distinction matters. Admiration grows when someone witnesses discipline, passion, and self-respect in motion. Detachment allows these qualities to surface clear because they are no longer overshadowed by emotional neediness or overavailability. Another important shift is identity. When a woman detaches, she stops identifying herself primarily through relationships or roles defined by others. She becomes self-defined. Her sense of worth comes from progress, not approval. This internal validation stabilizes her emotionally and sharpens her focus. She is less reactive, more intentional, less scattered, more centered. Purpose demands this level of inner order. Detachment also creates resilience. When setbacks happen, they no longer feel like personal failures. They are feedback. A woman aligned with purpose understands that rejection does not derail her path, it redirects it. This mindset keeps her moving forward while others remain stuck replaying the past. Movement itself becomes attractive because it signals life force, ambition, and growth. A short example illustrates this clearly. Imagine a woman who once put her dreams on pause for a relationship that lacked consistency. Her mood depended on messages, and her plans were flexible to accommodate someone else. After detaching, she redirects her energy. She commits to her career goals, starts training her body with discipline, and spends evenings building a skill she's passionate about. Weeks later, her energy has changed. She's calmer, more focused, and less available by default, not out of strategy, but because her life is full. The same person who once had her attention now notices the shift and feels drawn back, sensing her growth. But this time she's not waiting. Her purpose comes first. In the end, detachment shifts focus back to purpose because it restores ownership of time, energy, and identity. A woman aligned with her purpose doesn't chase attention. She creates a life that commands respect. And that alignment is something no one can ignore. Detachment is Emotio. Nail maturity because it reflects the ability to feel deeply without being ruled by those feelings. Emotional immaturity reacts. Emotional maturity responds. A woman who practices detachment does not deny her emotions, suppress them, or pretend she doesn't care. She simply refuses to let emotions override her judgment, boundaries, and self-respect. This balance is the clearest sign of emotional intelligence, and it separates impulsive attachment from conscious love. Emotionally mature detachment means understanding that feelings are information, not commands. Hurt does not automatically require confrontation. Loneliness does not require settling. Love does not require self-sacrifice. A detached woman can acknowledge disappointment without spiraling, feel attraction without chasing, and experience loss without losing herself. This ability to self-regulate is powerful because it keeps her grounded regardless of external circumstances. One of the strongest signs of emotional maturity is knowing when to walk away without burning bridges. Immature detachment storms out to prove a point. Mature detachment steps back quietly without drama, resentment, or the need to be right. A woman with emotional maturity does not weaponize silence or disappear to punish. She withdraws because she understands that peace is more valuable than being understood by someone unwilling to listen. Choosing peace over chaos is another hallmark of this maturity. Chaos often disguises itself as passion, intensity, or chemistry. Emotional maturity sees through that illusion. A detached woman recognizes that love should feel stable, not exhausting. She no longer confuses anxiety with excitement or inconsistency with depth. Detachment allows her to step out of emotional turbulence and choose environments, relationships, and conversations that support her nervous system instead of draining it. Lovi. Deeply without losing yourself is perhaps the highest form of emotional intelligence. Detachment does not mean shallow love, it means secure love. A detached woman can be fully present without clinging. She can give affection without abandoning her needs. She can commit without dissolving her identity. This kind of love is strong because it comes from fullness, not fear. It is rooted in choice, not dependency. Emotional maturity also means accepting reality instead of negotiating with potential. A detached woman does not stay attached to who someone could be if they change. She responds to who they are now. This saves her from years of waiting, hoping, and explaining. Acceptance is not resignation, it is clarity, and clarity is deeply attractive because it signals self-trust. Another aspect of this maturity is accountability. A detached woman doesn't blame others for her emotional state. She takes responsibility for what she tolerates, where she invests energy, and when she needs to step back. This ownership is powerful because it removes the victim mindset. She is no longer at the mercy of someone else's behavior. She is in control of her responses. This level of emotional regulation naturally attracts respect. People sense when someone cannot be easily destabilized. Calm confidence commands attention without demanding it. A woman who detaches emotionally does not need to prove her strength. It is felt in how she handles disappointment, rejection, or uncertainty. She doesn't chase closure. She doesn't seek revenge. She can move forward with dignity. Men in particular respect this energy because it is rare. Many are used to emotional volatility, arguments, or emotional dependence. When they encounter a woman who can communicate calmly, disengage respectfully, and maintain self-respect, under pressure it stands out, not because she is distant, but because she is centered. That centeredness creates trust and admiration. A short example illustrates this clearly. Imagine a woman in a relationship where communication becomes inconsistent and promises are repeatedly broken. Emotionally immature behavior would be constant arguments, emotional outbursts, or staying silent while growing resentful. Emotional maturity looks different. She expresses her needs once, clearly and calmly. When the behavior doesn't change, she detaches. She reduces emotional investment, stops over-explaining, and eventually walks away without insults or drama. She doesn't block out of anger or stay to prove loyalty. She leaves with peace, knowing she honored herself. That quiet exit leaves a lasting impression because it reflects strength, not bitterness. In the end, detachment is emotional maturity because it proves a woman can love without losing control of herself. She chooses peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and self-respect over emotional hunger. Love adds to her life, but it never consumes it. And that kind of grounded, self-aware energy is rare. Rare energy doesn't chase respect, it naturally receives it. Remember this. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about yourself to stop settling for less. When a woman detaches, she doesn't lose people, she loses illusions. And what remains is alignment, respect, and real connection. So stand firm. Pull your energy back when it's not honored. Choose yourself when you're undervalued. Move in silence. Build in peace. Glow without explanation. Because the moment you detach, you stop chasing, and everything meant for you starts finding its way back. That's power.